Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited you could be here. Today, I'm really honored to have the guest on that I have on. I have actually looked at her content, what she's done for so many years. I'm actually kind of a loss for words because it's such an honor to have her on. Such a big fan because we share so many of the same loves, the passion for entrepreneurship, the passion for helping entrepreneurs get capital and being able to understand business credit, consumer credit, how this whole system works. And she's probably one of the biggest contributors of content that I've ever seen out in this space. So it's a real honor to have her on with us today. And today we're going to be talking about business credit, the confusion of business credit, what you need to know. We're going to talk about monitoring. We're going to talk about consumer credit. We're going to talk about this whole picture and really how you can tie it all together to just make it easier for you to run your business and get the capital that you really need to do so. So with us today is Gerri Detweiler. Now, Gerri is actually a leading nationally recognized financing and credit expert with more than 20 years of experience. She actually shares her knowledge through contributed content in leading industry and national publications, and her articles have been featured on places like Yahoo, MSN Money, ABC News, CBSNews.com, NBCNews.com, Forbes, The Today Show website, and many, many, many others. Now, she's actually the author of 7 different books. That's 7 different books, including her forthcoming book, which should roll out later this year, The Ultimate Credit Repair Action Plan, a step-by-step guide to get great credit, which will be released, like I said, later this year. So Gerri actually hosts her own talk radio program for more than 5 years she's done, and she's been interviewed for more than 5,000 news stories. She's an international speaker, and she has testified before Congress on consumer credit legislation as well. Now, today, Gerri develops educational programs and content for small business owners for NAV, a financial health and credit platform that provides small business owners a dedicated space for assessing, building, managing their business and their personal credit, tracking cash flow patterns, and understanding their finance options before they apply. Gerri, a real honor to have you on. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Oh, Ty, likewise. I've been reading your work for so many years, and I just can't believe we haven't met. And I think we just discovered that we used to live in the same neck of the woods. So had I known, you would have come into studio for my radio show when I was doing my live radio show in Sarasota, Florida. But I'm glad we could connect today.
Yeah, I love that too. Now you're in Croatia today, so a little bit further than Sarasota is for me down here in Tampa. So,
Come over.
but I look forward to connecting with you. I love talking to people that are passionate about the same things. I mean, like you are consumer credit, business credit, like the things that I'm most passionate about, you are passionate about as well. Where did you get this? What got you started into the financial services space and especially the credit space?
I totally fell into the credit space when I was living and working in Washington, D.C. I took a job with a consumer advocacy group. And this was, at this time, it was if you wanted a low interest rate credit card, you'd send us $4 in the mail and we'd send you a list of credit cards. A lot of them came out of Arkansas because Arkansas had the interest rate cap on consumer credit cards. And then as part of that work, because our organization was focused just on credit, we were approached by a number of consumer groups and also legislators who wanted to improve things in the credit report space too. So this is free credit reports, free credit scores for consumers. So I was involved in all of that, and since then it's just evolved. About 12 years ago, I wrote my book "Finance Your Own Business" with attorney Garrett Sutton. And in the course of writing that book, I interviewed the founder of NAV, Levi King, and ended up working there for a number of years.
Wow, that is you've had a vast history. I mean, $4 in the mail to get the list. I love that. It's interesting how the internet and how many things have changed, and now even the changes we're seeing in our space with AI and the leaps forward that it's actually creating for everybody.
Yeah, and I think what's super interesting for me and what excited me about NAV was the fact that, I had seen this evolution in the consumer space where you had to go down to the credit bureau to buy your credit report. And it was at the time being computerized, but over time, we now have these credit reports available from multiple sources, free credit scores. But the business credit space is very, very different. It's very confusing. So whereas, at the beginning of my career, I'd ask somebody, have you checked your credit report? Do you know your FICO score? And they'd look at me very blankly. Now it's still, to some extent, business owners who just are like, well, I don't really know what that is, how to check it. There isn't the same level of transparency and access. And so that's why, the types of things you're doing, the types of things that NAV is doing, it's really important to help entrepreneurs, get that edge so that when they need good credit, it's there for them.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because when I got started in this space, which was a long, long time ago, and you remember back too, I mean, I think Entrepreneur reported that like 90% of business owners knew nothing about business growth. They didn't even know. And then I've seen some of the statistics that NAFPA has put out through surveys and through research, and it's crazy, like the significant boost in your ability to be able to get financing just by knowing and understanding these things. So and you've been here through this decades to see that now we've got TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and content creators that are talking about this more and more and more. A lot of it inaccurate, but they're still talking about it and making it a topic of discussion. So I see a shift. But I'm interested, like, why are we so oblivious to business credit? Like, why is the entire entrepreneur community as powerful as it is? What's your take on why there are just so many that are so oblivious to what business credit is, how it works, and how it can help them?
Well, I think one reason we don't know a lot about business credit is because there isn't the same requirements that you'd be told when your business credit is checked. There's, much wider access to business credit than there's a personal credit. And so unless you have a reason why you either hear about business credit and think I need it, or something happened, you get turned down, or like me, you're a victim of business identity theft, something like that, those are the situations where you suddenly say, hey, this is something, that I need to pay attention to. And that's certainly where NAV came from originally, because NAV's co-founder, Levi King, had gone through this with his own business. It was sign manufacturing in rural Idaho. And he had, gone through all these trials and tribulations with his business credit and said, hey, I have to teach, entrepreneurs and also make it available to them. So it's one of those things you don't know until something happens. And that's a little bit late. So you and I are out there telling people, this is something you want to think about sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I see that the same thing in the consumer space. I owned a mortgage company back in the day, and so many people would come in with bad credit. And it was a conversation like, okay, well, this is from years ago. Like you've never rebuilt, like what happened? And they would just kind of have this belief that it would repair itself over time and not do anything proactive to actually do anything with it until they needed it. It was just always a reaction thing, almost always a reaction. Like very rarely would you have anybody be proactive in it to try to get credit to improve the credit. Now we see this with monitoring, and Nav's brought that, made it very convenient for all of us. So we start to see this with monitoring where there is a little bit of proactive approach on the consumer side. Now on the business side, just to see what's going on and get an understanding. But I still am baffled at why more entrepreneurs aren't more proactive considering the value of what business credit can do for them.
Yeah, and one of the comments that I hear, I don't know if you hear this one, but it'll be, well, I pay my bills on time, so I don't need to worry about my credit. And I personally feel like that's the person who really needs to worry about their credit, because you are a good target for someone who would like to use your business or personal identity for, their own credit purposes. But I think there is sort of that natural, like, well, I pay my bills on time. What do I have to worry about? Unfortunately, business credit, and I know you've seen this, and I've seen this so many times, does require you to be more proactive than with consumer credit. You have to make an effort, because not all companies report to business credit bureaus. Not all companies report to all the major business credit bureaus. And so unless you're actively working on it, you may have a business that is doing just fine and has absolutely no business credit record at all.
And I see a lot of that. I mean, I see the multi 7-figure, 8-figure business owners that come to us in a panic because their credit line was pulled. They were denied, to your point earlier, they all of a sudden are having a negative interaction with not having business credit or thinking it's bad. And then it really being because they don't have any. And they're just shocked by, like you said, like they think because they have credit with vendors and they're paying it as agreed, that they just automatically have a credit profile. And they're shocked to realize that none of those vendors that they actually have these relationships with are reporting. And it's staggering. Statistics are like, I think last time I looked, like 90% or something. Most vendors don't report. Overwhelmingly, most don't. Which I think is interesting. And even then you deal with the bureaus, and the bureaus won't even tell you like who your credit's with. Like if you pull that report, they can't. We have a unique relationship with D&B, and it's interesting to hear them. Like that's a guarded secret. Like their trade vendors, they're protecting that, where they won't even tell you, like on your own report, who it is you have credit with. They won't even disclose in the world who these vendors are that report. Why is this so secretive? It just seems kind of crazy to me because on the consumer side, I go to Target, they automatically offer me a 20% off to get a credit card. I know it's going to report. But in the business world, it's always been this like secret world that people just don't know. You can't get that information.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Ty, if you look back at the history of credit reporting, well, first of all, business credit reporting came before consumer credit reporting. So it's a very, very old industry in the US. But if you look at back some of the history, this has been an ongoing debate between the companies, the merchants, the retailers who rely on these credit reports, and then the companies that supply the credit reports in terms of the accuracy and disclosure. And honestly, I think it's probably a regulatory issue. I mean, if we didn't have the Fair Credit Reporting Act on the consumer side, and we didn't have the subsequent updates on the consumer side that gave us free credit reports, that gave us free credit scores, I don't think we'd have them, right? I mean, it did end up being, more of a regulatory issue that provided that access. But when you talked about just a moment ago, you talked about the number of vendors that report. I just saw a statistic from Experian that said that out of 500,000 vendor relationships in the US, only about 10,000 report. And so 10,000 sounds like a lot, but that means all kinds of very specific industries, and they don't report to everybody. And so, like you said, you have to be very proactive about finding those accounts that report and then getting those accounts and managing them well. And it doesn't mean you have to have a lot of debt necessarily, but it does mean you need to build these financial relationships that show up on your credit report and then make sure you pay on time.
Sure. Yeah. And that's one of the things I talk about a lot is that, like, if you're going to spend this money, you might as well spend it with somebody that's giving you a history so others can see what's happening. Like, the fact that you're spending money with whatever vendor it is doesn't really make a difference if no other vendors can see that you're doing that. Because when other vendors see you're doing it, then they want to extend you credit. But if they don't, then there's really no motivation for them to even want to extend you credit. It's just what you said is just crucial to being able to get more credit from other vendors and continue to get those limits higher and higher, which is the difference maker between somebody building a 6-figure business and an 8-9-figure business.
Yeah, and I've talked to so many entrepreneurs over the years who just say, "Well, I don't worry, I don't want debt, I don't want to have good credit," but it comes into other relationships too. And this is what we don't always realize as you're growing your business. For example, I did a webinar for accountants, and one of the accountants contacted me afterwards. She said, I work for one of the biggest big box retailers in the US, and we always checked D&B Paydex on potential suppliers. So if you wanted to be a supplier, whether you wanted to clean the parking lot or get your, products into the store, they would check your D&B credit report, your Paydex score. And she said most business owners had no clue. They just had no clue because for that type of business and for larger businesses, what they're checking is financial capability. They want to see that your business has the capability to fulfill whatever relationship it is that you're going to have with them. So it's not necessarily a loan, but it's something that could be very, very crucial to your business growth.
Yeah, and I love Nav and how Nav brings so many tools and resources to help a business owner do that because it's kind of like, and to your point, even, it's interesting. So if you read Sam Walton's book, he talks about this where in the very beginning, I mean, before Walmart was even a thing, where he was just, out there buying for from other companies. He was out there, he would go in, he would know they were going in the back room, and he would even reference in the book, I know they're going back there to pull like my Dun and Bradstreet credit profile and score. Then they would come out and extend him credit. And I mean, this is the beginning of Walmart. So that's how far back this goes, where, so many vendors. And again, to your point, like if you look at credit reports from, Microsoft, from Apple, from any of them, they're just loaded with trade lines. Like all these companies got to where they are by understanding the system and then using business credit strategically. I think I read something like Walmart's like 80% of what they sell, they're using business credit to buy. So they're saving their cash to be able to build locations. And then they're taking the credit and they're using the credit to stock the shelves. I mean, ultimately, that's their entire model. So it's astonishing on what it can do if you understand it and how big these companies become just with the understanding, knowledge, and being able to actually work the system the way the system is designed for us to be able to work.
Yeah, and another reason I want business owners to be aware of business credit and use business credit is because of my own personal experience as I've had my own freelance consulting and contracting business for many, many years. And I had a business partner who ended up basically ripping me off for tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm convinced, I'm absolutely 100% convinced, Ty, that if I had checked his business credit, I would have seen other issues and I might have structured the relationship differently. But on the outside appearance, his business looked really good, had a good reputation, it was well known in the industry. And so it looked really good. But I paid the price. And so that's the other thing I say to business owners. Hey, if you're providing something that's valuable to somebody else and you're not getting paid in full upfront, check business credit. So whether you're consulting, contracting, providing services, whatever it is, you want to make sure you're a lender, right? You're lending something, even if it's not money, to that other business. You want to check and make sure that, you are walking into this eyes wide open. Same with business partners too, because that's another one where I'm sure you've seen people really get burned and end up damaging their credit through a business partner that isn't on the up and up.
Yeah, it's interesting because I love the show The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis. And I've seen an episode where that exactly happened. He's like, there were some weird things the guy said. He didn't become, he went back to his hotel. He pulled his business credit report and then came back with that, confronted the owner, and then made the decision not to invest and not to go into business based on what was on that actual report. And I love that you bring it up because I don't talk about that enough. I talk a lot about using business credit to be able to fuel your business, but really not the other side where if you're doing business with people and you're extending them credit, you should be looking to see their own business credit profile and score to see how they pay others before you make those decisions to even extend them credit.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a good warning sign. And then the third reason I'm really passionate about business credit is because during the pandemic I was hit by both business and personal identity theft at the same time. And so I was able to catch it quickly because I monitor my credit, thank goodness. And it was pretty minimized. I mean, they did open a couple bank accounts in my name. They did get filed successfully for unemployment, even though I was already working full time at NAB at that time, had a full time job. Um, but I caught it, shut it down quickly, and I haven't, suffered a lot of repercussions since. But you probably are well aware there's a lot of statistics coming out of organizations that monitor fraud that are showing that, business identity theft is growing. It's a risk. It's a risk to us business owners who might be, extending credit to somebody else or selling something that they might pay for later. But it's also a risk as a business owner. If you don't catch it and you don't find out about it quickly, it makes it much harder to clean up and takes a lot more time and money, and even to the extent where it could potentially put your business at risk.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, and I've had, I never talk about this publicly, but like I've had somebody file taxes under my own social. I mean, I've had similar things happen, right? Where now every year I have to have a PIN. I have to go through a whole special process to make sure that like I can prove that it's me filing my own taxes. And I think that's just because we're out there, right? Our names are out there. And as entrepreneurs, you have to recognize that. Like you are out there, your name is out there, you're easy to find. And people realize you have more money, statistically than people that don't own businesses. So as a result of that, you make your business a target, you make yourself a target individually. You just have to be monitoring. It shouldn't even, it's like a requirement. You have to be monitoring consumer and business credit because every day people are trying to find a way to hack the system to get in there and use your name, company and individually for no good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's not a week that goes by where we don't hear about some data breach, but we don't hear enough about the business identity theft issue, even though it's well documented. So hopefully you and I are getting a few people to think about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think? What's some of your best advice to help a business owner go from novice and not understanding business credit at all to being able to kind of get past some of the confusion, the misconceptions, and start down a path successfully to start obtaining it and then being able to monitor it?
Well, first of all, I just think is dedicating a little bit of time to getting things set up is really helpful. And it doesn't have to be super time consuming, but it is going to take a little time to get it set to take a look at what's on your credit reports, to find out what it says. It's probably going to be confusing. You're probably not going to understand all of it because, like you said, They don't report the names of the creditors, for example. They might use DBT for the payment history, days beyond terms, instead of the 30-day buckets that you're used to. But you do that first, and then you just monitor on a regular basis, and then start establishing some accounts that report. And then by just doing that, you're well ahead of many other people who aren't doing anything, who aren't, even checking. So even those simple steps can get you further. Now, the caution I would say is there is some information online that would make it seem like business credit is this magical solution to all your problems, all your business financial problems, or that just by getting business credit, you're automatically going to be getting millions of dollars, in funding with no personal guarantees. And you do have to be careful who you're listening to. So listen to reputable sources. But with that, it is possible to make quite a bit of progress in as little as a year.
Yeah, what sounds too good to be true typically is too good to be true. I love some of the stuff out there. This is just because you have an EIN, the government, it requires banks to give you like $250,000 because you have an LLC. There's some really interesting stuff that's out there. It's kind of like I wish other people would, at some point in the early stages, get out there and talk about business credit. Then when I saw people start to do so, I was like, ooh, I wish I would not have wished for that because a lot of it is so many people are misinformed out there, and I think they're trying to help. They just don't even know themselves, or some of them are just trying to sell, unscrupulous people trying to sell things. Nav, let me ask you. I'm such a fan of Nav and what Levi has built. I mean, Nav has just done so many cool things, providing education, resources, and solutions that, quite honestly, I haven't seen anybody else been able to do. Like he's penetrated things and got the ability to pull reports together, consumer and business and things that I've never seen anybody be able to accomplish. I have no idea how he's accomplished what he has, Levi, in the time that he built it. And of course, a lot of things have happened since. So what kind of resources does NAV have available that can help a small business owner start down the path of building business credit, understanding it, and protecting themselves both on the business side and the consumer side?
Well, the first step with NAV is to go, and you could even set up a free account, because with a free account, you'll at least get summary reports from major business credit bureaus, and then you'll get letter grades currently that will indicate, whether your credit can use some work or whether it's strong. You get insights to personal credit. And then many of NAV's customers end up getting NAV Prime, which is a paid subscription, and that paid account will give detailed credit reports, credit scores, not just grades, and then monitoring on a monthly basis. Plus, that payment that you're making each month for that is submitted to the Business Credit Bureau. So you're adding, a trade line in addition to being able to check, manage, and monitor your business and personal credit in one dashboard. But that's really the beginning. And NAV's goal is to help businesses build financially healthy companies. So there's cash flow tools, for example, that can give you cash flow insights. There's credit monitoring to give you, insights into your credit. There's some other cool things that NAV is working on that I can't quite talk about yet, but the goal is really to make it easy for business owners to get that information and then actually apply it so their company can not miss out on those growth opportunities, but take advantage of those growth opportunities. And I think sometimes we think about credit like, well, I have to borrow, but credit can, in the business space, it can really be associated with growth. You get the opportunity to, buy out another business that is closing, or buy their assets, or you find a Facebook ad formula that's really working and you want to pump more money into it. But the gap between when you run those ads and when you get paid for whatever it is you're selling could be 30 or 60 days. And so having access to credit can just make it a whole lot easier. And it can also keep it off your personal credit. So if you were to put all those Facebook ads, I don't know, $50,000 a month of Facebook ads on your personal credit cards, you probably max them out. And then your credit scores will go down. And then you find it more difficult to get other credit because a lot of these credit card issuers, small business and personal, check personal credit, right? So by separating it, keeping it on a business credit card, you can help, keep that away from your personal credit. So there's just a lot of ways that it can make your life easier and also make it easier to take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, so many great nuggets of advice there and separating consumer and commercial credit and using business credit cards wisely and then being able to create that history where you're actually spending that money. We've done that with Facebook. We're spending $100,000 a month on ads. Well, now we do that in a way where other lenders and credit issuers see that, and then it makes it easier to be able to go out and borrow. And that's the mistake I see a lot of entrepreneurs make is they're out there trying to get quarter million, $500,000 or more. But yet when you look at their business credit profile, there's no history that they borrowed or paid back anything close to that. And so your point, that's why it's just so important. Like you need to show the spending where the world can see it, because this world of lenders and credit issuers, when they see that you're using and spending that kind of money responsibly, then they're more inclined to give you the high credit limit loans and the lines of credit, not just based on your business credit quality, but it's definitely a factor where they want to see how your business has repaid its debts. And if you can create that kind of history, it's just invaluable to be able to help you get to those loans and lines and those limits that so many people are trying to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're just starting out, like if you're a newer business and this is new to you or you're just starting your business, setting that foundation is really important too, because I've talked to a lot of credit managers who tell me, one of the biggest problems that they're facing is just outright fraud and money laundering, right? So you have a brand new business that's just started up. It doesn't have an online presence, doesn't have a business phone number, doesn't have a business address. That's risky, right? That's risky. And so I'll hear the frustration from small business owners and say, well, I can't get that, I can't get that first loan that I need to start my business. But that's because statistically, there's a lot of risk with new businesses. So you do have to do this sort of in the, I don't want to say the right way because it's not just one way, but you do have to do this systematically. And that's why so many people do try to get help, whether it's from, Credit Suite or whether it's from NAB or both, because you want to build that foundation so that your business looks and is built to last. And then on top of that, you're adding the financial capability that credit demonstrates. So there's two layers to that process that are both very, very important.
Yeah, and I love that we are so passionate about exactly the same thing. And I stand in front of large crowds and I ask this question, and to this day, not one person has got it right. Where I say, "What is the number one reason that loan applications are denied?" And nobody ever guesses fraud, but statistically, overwhelmingly, like that's why majority of applications are denied. We never even think about that, and it's scary how many entrepreneurs we see that are put into that fraud bucket where they're denied because the lender thinks that because their information's incongruent, they don't have the separation of consumer and commercial credit, or their business doesn't look to be separated. Like it just doesn't even look like legitimate business when they're doing their basic checks. It just doesn't even pass the sniff test. And entrepreneurs never even get a chance to get evaluated because of that. So I'm really, really happy that you touched upon that because it's a big reason that entrepreneurs aren't getting the money that they need.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the great thing is it's really easy to start a business in the United States. The challenge is it's really easy to start a business. And so if you don't put that foundation in place, it's hard to grow the business, effectively over the time that it may take to really, make the kind of money you're looking to make.
Yeah. How long have you worked with NAF?
I I started working at NAB 10 years ago. I think I'd mentioned, I had written Financial and Business. And in the course of writing that book, I had interviewed Levi King. And I can remember clear as a bell to I was, sitting in my office and he told me about what they were trying to do. And I was like, this is really cool. We've got to put this in the book. And next thing I know, the book comes out and I'm working at NAB. So, so it all worked out quite well.
What are your favorite products at NAF?
I think just really getting people started with checking in their credit is the most important thing. Like that's where my passion is because credit is my background. I love the cash flow tools because cash flow is one of the things that really business owners have to master. And there's some new bookkeeping tools that make it easier to handle that, which is the thing I hate the most in my own business. It's bookkeeping. I'm not a numbers person. I really don't enjoy it that much. But yeah, so there's a variety of tools there. But really, if I'm so happy if someone just says, I'm going to check my credit, I'm going to stay on top of it, and I'm going to take some steps to build business credit so that when I need it, it's there, foundationally for me. And that I love it.
I love that. A lot of people watching and they say, this really comes home to me. This really makes a lot of sense. I want to take a next step. Where should they go? What should they do to be able to learn more?
Well, if they want to check out NAV, we do have a page, a podcast page, nav.com/Gerri. That's Gerri. So it's Jerry with a G. And on that page, you'll see some free resources. And you can always, of course, go to nav.com and you can you can start with a free account. NAV Prime is a paid subscription that also provides, reporting to business credit bureaus. And then once you're in there, you see all the other tools that NAV has to offer.
Gerri, do you have your own social channels or are able to people to find you on NAVs?
I Most of my business credit things are on NAV's YouTube channel. So if you
Okay.
go to NAV SMB, there is NAV the rapper. That's not us. So at NAV SMB for small business, you'll find a bunch of videos that I've done this past year talking about these topics in more detail.
Can you do a rap for me?
Sorry. Wish I could.
Gerri, thank you so much for coming on with us today. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it.
And so listen, if you're watching this, go to nav.com/Gerri. That's Gerri. And I can tell you, we've done a lot of episodes. I think 900 or something episodes or something like that. And I have never been so honored to have a guest on as I am to have Gerri on. She literally is the most knowledgeable person I have ever met in the space of consumer and commercial credit. Those that follow me know that's a pretty high accolade. Like, I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot through the decades of teaching, and I see her as a level 10x above where I am with knowledge and her willingness to share that knowledge. So if you really want to see more about what NAV can do for you, and you should, because we recommend NAV to every single client we work with, every single client, we are pushing over there for help with monitoring and help with many of the other tools that they have. Then make sure you check them out at nav.com/Gerri. That's Gerri. You also should check out NAV's YouTube channel. The content is, I mean, brilliant that Gerri actually participates in there. So make sure you check that out. And then I'm going to put the link to the NAV SMB on the web, on the show resources page as well. I'm going to go look that up, make sure I have the right link to give you, and I'll put that on the show resources page as well. But right now, the thing you should do is learn more about a next step. You need to be monitoring your consumer credit. You need to be monitoring your commercial credit. I have worked with hundreds of different credit monitoring companies. There's nobody that has it down like NAV does. They are the absolute best. And really, like from what I've seen, the cheapest, the most affordable, where you get the most value when it comes to consumer and commercial reports. So make sure you check them out. You get them all at one link, which is nav.com/Gerri, Gerri. Make sure you check them out today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day.